Which building is the tallest, you may wonder? Well, it's the largest library in the world. It's got all those stories in it. What's going on, YouTube? It's Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means we're inside the Hollow City, inside of Cold Harbor, outside the plane of existence to go over our first of 2 weekend vendors. We continue with shrines. Now, the beautiful thing, we have the TSC average here, which actually shows us which of these shrines are the juicer goosers, because as you can see, it kind of depends, you know. I will say too, you don't really get a lot of love for the elven stuff. We know why that is. And here we have the brand new Colovian path marker. This is on no price static. It's a brand new item. And we have some other returning items such as the sigil stand. We have Kennereth, we have Mara, we have Stendar, we have Zenithar, and we have this beautiful brazier. Now, when it comes to shrines, which ones are going to be the most valuable? Well, as we talked about earlier, people played Skyrim. We weren't exactly super enthusiastic about the Thalmor and their gods. So unfortunately, you're not going to see a whole lot of people jumping for joy. But this Basin of the Divines actually seems to do pretty well. This dragon-headed cold flame one also seems to do well. But I will caution you, there's like 10,000 lighting fixtures that do blue flames. So you don't need that. In fact, a new item also does blue flames. Also remember too that it's not like Fallout 76. You can phase furnishings into the ground, but the real winner is probably the Deadlands Brazier because it's probably the best affordable one for its value to get you the blue. The sigil stand always seems to sell pretty consistently, in my opinion. These are unfortunately not the gods that see as much resale value, but I do think Zenithar is probably the most popular here, with Kennereth as the second most popular from these ones at the bottom. And then we finish on another cold blue flame that's literally worth less than you buy it for on average. These are Xbox prices, so PC will probably be a little bit higher because inflation is different. We move on. The second vendor. And as we jump into our second golden vendor here, which is inside of our Northern High Rock Gate, inside of any Cyrodiil campaign, if you need help finding these bad boys, ESOhelper.com will help show you where to find these bad boys. As a reminder, hit the like and subscribe button. We're on the road to 34,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for everything. Now let's talk about what is in the golden vendor. And we start inside the Vaults of Madness with Grothdar. Maximum Magicka is a 1-piece. When you deal damage to an enemy within 8 meters, you have a 10% chance to create a lava pool that swirls around you. It's important it's around you, not the enemy that you actually did that to. Dealing 1141 flame damage to all enemies within 8 meters of you every 1 second for 5 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. This is a interesting monster set because actually it's pretty good. The Vaults of Madness is known for being a base game dungeon, meaning you would assume that a lot of the monster sets from there have been kind of overdone, you know, in the sense that they really just don't have a lot of value anymore. But Grothdar is actually a really good monster set. So a lot of times people like to really focus on single target damage for PvE content, but this is one of the best for AoE for PvE content. It really won't see a whole lot of utilization for PvP, but if you're looking for like a good monster set that's easy to go out and get, Grothdar is certainly perfectly reasonable to do so. The only downside is that just go farm Vaults of Madness. You could probably farm it with blindness. You could probably farm it with your friend David and Brandon who have minimal thumb access. So don't actually go out and purchase this set, but if you wanted to get a really good AoE monster set that's base game, this is like an 8 or 9 out of 10. I think it's a fantastic, or at least a great monster set, especially because it's pretty unique in how much AoE damage it deals. Yes, there are other monster sets that can do that. That's why it's not a 10 out of 10, but it's still up there. Next up from Exiled Redoubt is Squall of Retribution. Now it adds maximum health. Not bad actually as a 1-piece. Not as common as you might think for a 1-piece. And then second piece, when you take damage, you gain 1 random effect for 6 seconds. Minor protection, reducing your damage taken, a damage shield, or some healing. The healing scales off your maximum health. Now, this is a set that I don't know where you put. Is this a PvP set? Not really. Minor protection you can get by doing pretty much any type of content. There are sets, scribing skills, normal skills that give you minor protection. You slap on your back bar, you're good to go. Minor protection is just so easily gained in today's day and age. It's really not that helpful. A damage shield is certainly not very helpful for PvP, and neither really is health. So it's like, you're not going to use this for PvP, really. And plus, two, random effects are usually always outclassed by non-random effects. Look at things like the Monomyth versus the Saint and Seducer Mythic. Then you think, okay, Jake, what about PvP or PvE, excuse me? I just don't see it. I think it's an average set. I think it's fine. I would maybe lean towards a 6 out of 10 because I'm sure it's not. You could build a max health build out of it that it is fine, but the randomness, the fact that you probably already have minor protection, so then it's like 1 out of 3 of your monster set is not doing anything helpful for you. I just don't know where you put a set like this. It needs a build that I haven't yet seen, and therefore I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I'll lean on the side of it's better than average. It is a DLC monster set, so it has to have some home. I just don't know where that home is. It's homeless right now. Next up, we have another base game set from Blackheart Haven. It gives you stam recovery, stamina, and then when you drink a buff, when you have a drink buff active, your maximum stamina is increased by 2,000 and your stam recovery by 133. I love Bone Pirate. It was in my original stamina PvP setup. Now, the problem with a set like Bone Pirate is that it's not good in most metas. Why is that? Well, you rarely see people build maximum stamina because it's just easier for stamina users to just build weapon and spell damage to get their maximum output damage increased. So they're not going to be running a lot of sets that do max stats. So there's max stat builds. You may have heard of like max stat mag sorks or even Templars. You rarely see the stamina equivalents. They're certainly pilotable and they were great back in the day, but they're just not as good in this current meta. You can still build a great setup though with Bone Pirate. Unfortunately, its best utilization is probably in something goofy like a werewolf. Spoiler, because I'm looking at the sets below, it's probably going to be a theme for this because they want more maximum stamina, and this meta is very burst-esque where you want a lot of weapon and spell damage, so you're probably not going to see a lot of sets like Bone Pirate. All that to say, though, Bone Pirate could always come back. I'm still going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's got historical usage. You could still run it today and still have a good set combination with it. Next up is an Overland set from Western Skyrim, Eternal Vigor. So this one is Magicka recovery, stamina recovery, health recovery, adds 337 stamina and Magicka recovery while your health is below 50%, adds 1011 health recovery while your health is 50% or less. So if your health is above 50%, you get a lot of stamina and Magicka recovery. If it's below 50%, you get a little bit more health recovery. This was the werewolf set for a long, long time. It might still be the werewolf set. I will be honest. I don't generally look at what are the meta werewolf builds. Because to be fair, werewolves are like the original Oaken Soul build. You could just wear like 90% of anything. And this is probably like a 9 out of 10 werewolf build. But all that to say, should you use this on a non-werewolf character? I think it's actually a really good recovery set. The problem is that health recovery, generally if you need recovery, right? You're probably in PvP content. Why? Well, if you're in PvE content, you can more easy to do resource management controls. You know, generally, the people that are trying to kill you aren't as strategic in PvE content unless the people you're fighting are my friends David and Brandon and they have no thumbs and they operate like an NPC. Then, therefore, it might be the same. But generally, you know, your resource management is easier for PvE content than PvP. It's just the fights might be different. It's harder to know when those fights might end, etc. Health recovery is also not as helpful in PvP. But getting those other recoveries is helpful, but you also have sets like Wretched Vitality and Roxas that really knock down a set like Eternal Vigor, meaning you're probably really only going to use this in a werewolf build because they want to use all 3 of those resources very consistently and they care a lot about those recoveries. Meaning that for the average stamina or magicka user, I would say this is probably like a 7.5 out of 10. It's still good. It's not great, which is my 8. I would say it's good, 7.5, halfway to great. If you're a werewolf, it is probably closer to a 9, but I'm not putting that in the thumbnail. There's a 9 out of 10 set because it's a werewolf set. Next up is Winter's Respite. Now, this is a divisive set, also from the same place of Western Skyrim. So these are both sellable, which is why they have a price at the top. That doesn't factor in quality. So don't pay that too much mind. It gives you Magicka recovery, max mag, match mag. While in combat, casting an ability that leaves an effect on the ground will create you a circle of healing for 10 seconds. You and your group members restore 2673 health every 2 seconds while inside the circle. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your max magicka or stamina. So a set like this is actually good for a couple reasons. One, you can actually backbar a set like this because while in combat, casting an ability leaves an effect on the ground. You can put that on your backbar. You also can easily, slot this in with like things like an arena weapon. The Master's Restoration Staff is also pretty good. It's easy to slot those two things in together and use them together. The only real issue is that very rarely do you need to do types of content where you need to be specifically restoring health and overhealing like this, but there are utilizations and times where you will do so. They are limited, and in those limited utilizations, this is I don't want to say best in slot, but it's definitely up there when it comes to being able to easily slot into support characters. But most of the time, I would say this is just a great, easy to obtain healer support set. You could easily take this into dungeons and most group content and get a lot of utilization out of it. You're going to be able to build this with other arena weapons that are going to give you lots of value. I would give this an 8.9 out of 10. I don't think it's quite fantastic. And outside of those really specific utilizations, it's not, the must-own PvE set, because generally you don't really need to overheal. But I will say subclassing, I think, has made a set like this better, and you may see more utilization out of a set like this than you previously would have. Next up is a weird set because it comes from Fungal Grotto 1 and 2, so it's not subtlable. Spider Cultist. Crit chance, max mag, weapon and spell, 600 weapon and spell damage to your destruction staff abilities. That unfortunately seems like a lot, and it is a good amount. The problem is that you're limiting yourself so much with a set like this. Very rarely do sets that add 600 weapon and spell to your X ability lines ever see a lot of success because they're so narrow in scope for what you can do with them. I think really the only one that might see utilization is the one that does it for two-hander abilities, and that's just because you can do a whole build, execute, spammables, and stuns, pretty much gap closers and buffs, literally just with two-handers. You can't easily do that with Spider Cultists and your Destro abilities. Now, yes, you could spam Impulse inside of Cyrodiil and get a whole lot of ability, value from it, but it's just not worth it. A set like this is very hard to rate because in my mind, there's part of me that's like, Jake, what if you use the Destro ult ability and then you ran with Streak and then you did a whole bunch of other things that built up your weapon and spell damage, and you maybe use the Master's Inferno staff, or maybe you even use the Black Rose Prison, Impulse, Juicer Magooser. Is there a world that you could build a good or a great build out of it? Probably. There probably is. You could probably build a setup that you could make a great build out of this, but you are really going out and combining puzzle pieces. And I'm just doing this on the fly here, so please don't judge me if there is a set out there that exists or if you have better ideas. I'm just going off on the fly here. But I just don't see a set like this getting enough value in 2025. Yes, there's a way with subclassing. There is a way. I just don't think it would be great. I will give it a 7 out of 10 because I could see a world where the arena weapons stack and you could get 600 weapon and spell damage and you could burst off. So I'll give it a 7. That's a generous 7 out of 10. So this week was filled mostly with werewolf sets, which is a bit unfortunate, and shrines. I do love shrines. I love me some shrines. I've encouraged people for years to get the shrines because if you need to buy them outside of the time period when they're first available, they are annoyingly expensive. So it is a great investment to get them when they're in the vendor, especially if you're like me and you want to use them for your houses. Panther Fang Chapel needs some shrines. So as a quick recap, the shrines are definitely the best items this week. When we look at the sets here, there's actually some really good sets. Grothdar is, obviously, we talked about it earlier, a good recommendation. I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying it. Bone Pirate is like an OG. Eternal Vigor, if you want to be a furry, this is your go-to. And Winter's Respite, I think, is actually slept on pretty highly just because a lot of people feel like they don't need to have overhealing, which is true. Most content doesn't require it, but that doesn't mean that it does not have a home. So thank you guys so much again for watching. As always, we're doing our quick 3 giveaway drawings. All you need to do to enter is leave a comments below / like on the video. Second drawing will be for a random subscriber, so just be subscribed. And the third thing is look for a hidden word to be flashed upon the screen. If you're the first person to find and comment that word, you will win. We'll be doing a couple more videos this weekend. Unfortunately, last weekend I did 2 16-hour shifts back to back because they had a shift differential attached to them at the hospital. So it took a lot more time. I didn't get a chance to release some videos. So we have more coming out, although you may notice an uptick in me uploading YouTube shorts. That's because in my downtime, I can make YouTube shorts. So I can still make those even when I'm not at my desk recording. So have a fantastic weekend, everybody. I'll catch you guys tomorrow, and I'll see you there. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.